Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about another part of program controller structure in Python, which includes loops. Specifically, I'll be discussing for loops with you in this video. The for loop is a powerful structure in Python that allows you to efficiently execute a set of statements for each item in a list, dictionary, set, or generally any sequence. To better understand, let's explore one aspect of the application of the for loop in a simple scenario. Imagine you're a network administrator responsible for monitoring the status of multiple devices in your network. You want to use Python to automate the process of checking the connection status of each device and log the results. Great. According to this scenario, we are checking the status of our devices, right? So, first we need to introduce our devices with the specifications we have in mind. Depending on our needs, introducing devices can be done using a list, dictionary, or set. You might know the differences and features of these, but if you're not familiar, I recommend watching this video, which I have provided the link for above. Here I'm using a list to introduce my devices like this. And open and close brackets, and let me say router 1. Switch 1, firewall, server, and finally, let's say access point. Okay, there we go. Now, to make this list usable, I need to be able to refer to it whenever necessary. Or in other words, call it. So, I create a variable, for example, let's say network devices equals, and assign the list to it. Let's add a comment to make it more understandable like this. Let's say list of devices in the network. Okay. Now, we want to traverse this list using a for loop. In other words, we want to, in this scenario, perform a specific task for each of the devices inside the list. What the scenario asks us to do is to check and monitor the connection status of each device. Well, that itself can be an independent task. So before writing the for loop, we need to create a function that by default performs the monitoring task for us. But what do I say by default? The reason is that we haven't talked about the topic of functions in Python yet. But if you have followed the previous videos, you're somewhat familiar with the nature of functions. Okay, let's move on to writing our desired function. Using the def keyword, I create a function named, for example, check connection status like this. Def check connection status. Great. Now, I want this function to do a simple task for me. In fact, I want it to return the word connected to me when I call it. To do this, I use the return keyword like this. Return connected. There we go. If I want to give a very brief explanation in this regard, the return keyword in Python functions can evaluate and return a value of any type. For example, here I have asked it to return a string, or maybe at some point we needed to return the result of some arithmetic operations in two or more numbers written even outside this function, and so on. I'll cover much more about it later when we get to topic of functions, so no need to worry. Now, it's time to write the for loop, but it's good to remember to put a comment for each section of our code. So here's the comment. Let's say iterate through each device in the network. Now the for loop. For. But the question here is, for what? Good question. Let's see again what we are supposed to do. We are going to do a task for each of the devices inside the list, right? In this scenario, we are supposed to check and monitor the connection status of each device. So, in each iteration of this loop, we'll need to call one of the devices and do the task we want, which in this case is running the function check connection status for each device. So, I continue like this. For device in network devices, and a colon at the end that forms the for block for us. Now, we need to invoke the function we wrote so that it gets executed once in each iteration. What do we need to call a function here? Well, a variable to call our function by its name from now on. So, I create a variable called, for example, let's say connection status, and assign the function check connection status to it like this. Let's say connection status equals check connection status function. Okay. Now, let's review this one line together. Well, as you can see in this line, we have two keywords, for and in, and two variables, devices and network devices. The task of for and in is clear. The task of network devices is clear too. In fact, this is the variable to which we assign our list. But what is the device variable and where does it come from? Well, first I should say that the device variable is temporary variable, or in layman terms, a placeholder. Second, it can have any name like X, Y, or anything you like. It's just better to have a meaningful name that makes reading and interpreting the code easier for us, okay? However, what do I mean by saying it's a temporary variable or a placeholder? Well, it's straightforward. For is a loop, so it's supposed to iterate, and in each iteration, it calls one of the items in the list, and a task is performed for that item, okay? Therefore, it needs to temporarily store that item somewhere, right? So, here the device variable is that temporary place where in each iteration of the loop, one of the items from our list goes into, and the desired task is performed on it. So according to the explanation I gave, here in the first iteration of the loop, the for loop is supposed to call the first item in our list, that is router 1, okay? Place it inside the variable device and then run the function check a status connection on it. And the next iteration, it should do the same for switch 1, and so on. It seems very simple and understandable, right? Definitely. Oh, I almost forgot. It's good to put a comment for this function too, like this. For example, simulate. Let me do this. Simulate checking the connection status of each device. Okay, there we go. Now, as we go through each iteration, and the check connection status function is executed for each device, it would be nice to display the result as a log. Don't you think? So, let's use the print function to achieve this, but first let's add a command to make it more understandable, like this. Let's say log the results. Now, to create a meaningful and formatted log in the output, I want to introduce you to one of Python's features. That's the f-string, or formatted string. In Python, an f-string or formatted string literal allows you to embed expressions inside string literals using curly braces. These expressions are evaluated at runtime and formatted using the format protocol, or I should say format method. Here's the basic syntax of an f-string. Let's see. In this example, name and age are placeholders that get replaced with the value of the variable name and age when the string is created. The f prefix before the string indicates that it's an f-string or formatted string. F-strings offer a concise and readable way to embed expressions in strings, making it easier to create formatted output. Let's run it and see the result in the output. As you can see in the output, it shows us this message is expected. My name is Farhad and I am 40 years old. Alright. Now let's get back to our scenario. I want to use an f-string directly in the print function like this. Print f-string device connection status, let's say, connection status, and there we go. Here, just like the previous example, these curly braces are placeholders that will be replaced with the value of the variables device and connection status. Great. Now let's execute this code, but before that, a question. What do you expect to see in the output? Pause the video and think about it for a minute. We expect for loop to iterate over each item in the list, execute the check connection status function, which in this example returns connected, and finally show the output of each iteration as a log in the formatted way we specified, right? Let me run this code. Yes, exactly like that. Do you agree that learning Python is quite easy? Especially if you want to learn it for a specific application or field like networking. Alright, great. But the mission isn't over yet. I want to add a very small part of this code. In fact, I want to display this message in the output when the for loop is done. Network status check complete. How can I do this? Pause the video for a minute again and think about it. Very good. If your answer is to exit the for loop and use the print function to display this message, you're correct. First I exit the for block, then I add a comment for it like this, let's say end of the loop. Okay. After that, I use print to write this. Network status check complete. This way, I instruct Python to show this message as the completion of the task. Let's run it. As you can see here, in the last line, we can see network status check complete. And this is because this print function. But my friends, what you saw in this video was an introduction to familiarize you with the for loop. There are other elements such as break statements, continue statements, else blocks, the range function, and nested loops, which we can use to enhance the for loop for more comprehensive and professional tasks, especially in the field of network automation and programmability. I didn't delve into them in this video because I prefer you to become more familiar with the real-world application of each of these elements. Therefore, in the upcoming videos and within other discussions like the while loop, functions in Python, and other topics, I'll cover the aspects I mentioned. I believe that this approach will provide a clear and more practical understanding of what you can achieve with Python in the networking domain. Stay tuned for our next videos. Great! We have reached the end of this video. If you found it helpful, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. This way, you'll stay updated on our upcoming videos. If you like this video, giving it a thumbs up and sharing it will contribute to reach more people interested in these topics. Thank you for your attention to this video.